Hey there folks. So one of the things that I have with my character right now is that I press the mouse and I can just keep on firing as many times as I want. But what if I wanted to have a little bit of a cooldown between this? What if I wanted the character to have to wait before they can attack again? This is definitely something that we'd want with maybe a melee attack, so that your character can't just keep on pressing it and end up actually cancelling out. Because one of the things you'll notice here is this is a very, very short animation. But if this was maybe an attack animation which was quite long, I would end up starting it and then the new input from the actual mouse would override what was just happening, play another animation override. And if we're doing things like triggering attack effects like collisions in the animation, well, then we never reach those moments in the animation in order to make the attack actually happen. So what we need to do is we need to add in some kind of delayed functionality in here so that we can't just attack right away. So how do I do that? Well, one of the things that you might see is people who use delays. Yeah, and I've mentioned this before, you could add a delay, but the problem with this is that once the duration starts, we can't cancel out of this, we can't end this. There's nothing that we can use to override this delay and say, actually, let's stop. Our characters just took a hit, they've been knocked back, this thing has happened, cancel this. And if you've got a really long delay time, well, that's going to cause us problems. It also means that there's not really a lot of control for us to pause it, restart it, check how long is being used on that delay, maybe because we want to have a UI element that cools down in between big powerful attacks and spells and abilities. The other thing is you could use event tick, but we really don't want to be checking every single frame and going, are we ready to attack yet? Are we allowed to attack? And you definitely don't want to use tick with delay comboed. What we want to use for this is we want to use a set timer. I'm going to use a set timer by event. You can use a set timer by function name, and I'll just show you the difference between these two. So set timer by function name. The key difference here is that this one has a delegate event that we're going to tell to run. This one is going to run a function over here. And although this is really great because it can just call that function, one of the things that I found when people are learning is that they often get a kind of a misspelling between these two things, and then it doesn't work. This one's a lot easier to see that red line between the events and just knowing that they connect up with each other. And this means that if you do rename a function, we're not going to end up with a break like this one, but maybe you might go back to function names a little bit later. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to set timer by event. I'm going to plug this in and I'm going to say for now that this is going to run on completed. So I'm going to say once my animation has finished, that's going to start the cooldown timer for when I'm allowed to attack again. But you've actually got three different options here. You could start the cooldown timer immediately, and that means that the actual animation itself is part of that cooldown. So if you had an animation that lasted for half a second and you had a 1 second cooldown, well, that means that actually the cooldown is only half a second from when it finishes to when it allows it to start again. If we have it on completed, then we may have felt like the animation has triggered. Maybe we fired a fireball or a projectile, we've done an attack, but there's a kind of cool down, relax bit of that animation where it resets back. That's also included into the cooldown itself. So again, that one's okay. It gives us a more uniform bit, but it means that in longer animations, the cooldown's going to feel longer because it is. The other option is that later on when we start having notifiers and we have the attack effect, we could start putting this into the attack effect so that we only start the cooldown potentially when the attack effect triggers. So when we fire the projectile or when we throw whatever effect it's going to be. So for now, let's just put it on the immediate. So we're going to set our movement mode. And we're going to do it on the completed. So we're going to come into here and we're going to create a custom event. So create a custom event. Custom event, add custom event. And we'll do this one as a main attack reset. And what you could do is you could take this event delegate pin and you could connect it to this. And what this is basically saying, if you have not used timers before, is it's basically saying when this event runs, we are going to wait for this many seconds, so this time, and after this many seconds has run, this event is going to happen. Now, the great thing about these timers is that we can actually use this return value to get a timer handle structure, which is basically a reference to the timer, which allows us to cancel it, to stop and start it. which we can't do with a delay. We can also set it to be looping. So we could say, well, this functionality here, I want you to keep on looping this. I want you to keep on having it happen for as long as this is set to looping. And then every single whatever this time is, so let's say 1 second, every single 1 second, this event will be run. Now, I do like that red line, but if it does get a bit complicated and confusing for you, one of the things that you can do is drag off of it and do a create event. And this will then let you pick from in here events that are suitable and can be connected. Now you'll see that lots of my other events are available to be connected. So I've just got to look here for main attack reset. You can also create a matching event. And this is a more complicated thing that maybe we'll look at in a future video in terms of events and creating events and what kind of inputs need to be on here. But for now, we'll just go with main attack reset, and these now are connected up with each other. And it also means that if I had 2 set timer by events, either of them could be connecting and firing, because I don't necessarily want to have lots and lots of red lines all going all the way through. It would be a lot easier to just be like, okay, well, this one is connected to that. This one can also be connected to that. And if it needs to run, I can just follow that kind of wireless connection that I've created here. Now this, we're going to promote this to a variable. I like to give it a value first, maybe like 0.5. And the reason for that is because when you take this, rather than coming over here into my variables list, creating the variable, giving it the type, compiling it and giving the value, if I come over here and give a value in, test it, I can then right click this and promote it to a variable. It's going to ask me what the name's going to be, and it'll be main attack cooldown. And you can see that now this is of the correct type of variable to float. I've given it the name, although it did default to whatever the name of the input was. And if I compile, the value that was already in there has been auto-assigned. So it's already set 0.5. And one of the things that I might just do now, just as things are going to get a little bit untidy, is I'm going to start using categories as I go. So I'm going to change this from default to attack. And the jumping one, let's change that into locomotion. So I've got my movement and I've got my attack. And you can see that creates nice organized sections that I can put these variables and values in. So what's going to happen here? Well, it's going to say on completed, we're going to do this and we're going to wait, and then we will print string. Let's say attack reset. And actually for now, let's just give this a definite amount of time so we can see how this is working. So we're going to start, we're going to stop. After it's completed, we're going to wait, and we're going to wait for 2 seconds, and then we'll trigger attack reset. So we fire 1, 2, and attack reset runs. So you can see that that timer is waiting for me. Now, why would we like to do that? Well, before we do this attack, because at the moment we can go fire, 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 fire. We can keep on doing this. Now, this is where the first delay would have caused us problems. This one waits, and if it tries to run a timer that already exists, it just resets that timer back to the full value that it needs to be. So what we'll do is we'll actually create ourselves a new value, which is going to be is attacking. Now, there's more advanced things you can do with this. You could look at your kind of actor and gameplay tags to handle this, but just to get you guys started, we're going to look at using simple booleans to just say, am I attacking? Yeah, so we'll do a very simple thing, and we'll go into our attack main, and the first thing we'll do is we'll say, okay, I want to attack. What would determine if I'm attacking? And I've done it purposefully here by is attacking is going to be true. So one of the things you could do is you could basically take this and put it into a branch, and in this instance we'd have to go off false, because we'd say, well, if I am not attacking, so if it's false, then we can do all this logic here. It is completely up to you whether you are using the is attacking and saying no and going out of false, or you might prefer to do a not boolean, and that looks for obviously the opposite, the converse of this, which if we read through this logically, what this is saying is it's saying if we are not attacking, and in that case it's true. So it's kind of following the affirmative path of this. This is just a logic option that I prefer to follow myself. So what this does is it says, well, okay, if we are not attacking, we are going to play this animation. Well, what we'll do is we'll say if we are not attacking, let's say that we are attacking. So we'll set this to true, and we'll say, okay, we are going to press the button. we're going to check if we are not attacking. And if we are not attacking, we'll say we are attacking. We'll play this animation. And what that should mean is that right now we can press it once, but we can never press it again. Even though that 2 seconds has just run, I can never attack again. Because obviously we've never set this back to false so that this can fire. Well, we've got this main attack reset. We know that the attack reset happens over here. And what I'm going to do is just going to tidy this all up a little bit. So this attack reset, what we're going to do in here is just very simply, we're going to say, okay, we're going to set our thing so that now we are no longer attacking. What else can we do? Well, we could also maybe give our character back their control of their movement. Yeah, so maybe not doing it right away over here. Maybe the cooldown also controls when we get our movement control back. That's not compulsory, you don't have to do it like that one, but it's one of those things that you can choose exactly what happens when you reset. Do you want to start moving again? Maybe after a really big melee swing, you want to wait till the cooldown's finished, and then you can move again. So you can see 2 seconds is a very, very long time to not be able to do that. But that's where we would reduce that down now and say, let's go with something like 0.5 and see what that feels like. So now you can see that no matter how quickly I fire that mouse key, it fires. And it's not the greatest with this, but again, it's a value that you can tweak and see. So here, even if I press this the quickest I can, I've got this much, much more controlled option. Now, as I said, this is completely up to you. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do this with a really long cooldown and have to make for it to wait, have to make it wait for a while? Do you want really low cooldowns? You could even take whatever the animation sequence is, get the length of it, and use that as the cooldown. That becomes a little bit more harder to balance because obviously then every animation is going to control things differently, but you can do that. Or you can just have a defined value that you tweak over this. Now you don't have to do the movement mode stuff. If you want your character to keep on being able to move around, you could just unplug these. So I can just show you what the difference is here if we don't trigger that. And now you can see my character can keep on firing. But no matter how far I jump, no how much I click this, it's always firing at a kind of defined roll. So I can press this as many times as I want and it never fires quicker than that. Yeah, you can go much, much lower. And let's have a quick look at this. And there we go. That's a bit more of a kind of quicker machine gun. Now, the last little thing that I might want to put into here is that this option, this thing here, we might want to be able to cancel out of this. We might want to be able to say, well, let's cancel the reset. Let's set the reset. Let's set us to not be attacking anymore. But what if something else was to come in here and override this? Yeah, we could have the on cancelled. But what about if we need to say, well, okay, we have been hit or a projectile has hit us? Well, what we might need to do is we might need to stop this cooldown. Yeah, so in that instance, what we do is we right click on the set timer by event. We promote the timer handle. So this is going to be our main attack timer. And again, let's put this into our attack section here. And now this, not only does it give us really useful things, for example, we can use it to get time remaining. We can get the time remaining by it. We can also get the time elapsed. They're great for UI to be able to obviously track how long is left and maybe have it visually showing. But we can also clear and invalidate our timer. So this attack reset, this could be something that we could just override and fire that just goes, okay, if we ever need to just reset our attack, we can clear and invalidate that timer so that the timer stops counting down. We can set ourselves to no longer be attacking, and obviously with our movement mode stuff, we can override that. Now obviously I can't just test that right now because there's nothing else calling this, but just know that that's now a function that you can just call and use anytime you want to just say, no, my character's not attacking anymore, reset it all, and that'll get rid of that timer for us. So it stops it counting down, clears it out, and resets it for us to be able to attack again. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to access more of my Unreal Engine content.